Westeros, a land not just of thrones and crowns, but of forgotten wars, ancient magic, and chilling prophecies. What you saw in the show was only the final chapter. But what about the beginning? This is the untold story of Westeros, a journey through fire and ice, blood and betrayal. Are you ready to uncover what truly lies beneath the Iron Throne? Episode 1. Before the Seven Kingdoms, the birth of legend. Long before thrones and banners, before Lannisters, Starks, or Baratheons, Westeros was a land of shadow, silence, and old gods. The first men arrived from Essos, sailing crude wooden boats to these wild, mist-covered shores. But the land wasn't empty. The mysterious children of the forest lived here, creatures deeply bound to magic and nature. The first men brought war, not peace. For centuries they clashed with the children until a fragile pact was made. The forests would belong to the children, the open lands to men. But that peace was short-lived, because from the frozen north came death. The White Walkers appeared, pale, blue-eyed beings who walked with the silence of night and the chill of death. To survive, men and the children united against their common enemy. From that war rose a hero, the last hero, who brought hope in the darkest hour. When the White Walkers finally retreated, a massive wall was built. The Night's Watch was born. This is where the true history of Westeros began, written in ice and blood. But it was only the spark. Episode 2, In the Shadow of the Seven Kingdoms. Westeros as we know it was forged from fire and rebellion. The Seven Kingdoms were united, but not in peace. Instead, betrayal, ambition, and blood soaked the lands. After Robert's rebellion, the Baratheon dynasty sat on the Iron Throne, but power, as always, was an illusion. King Robert loved wine and the hunt far more than ruling. He was blind to the webs being spun inside his own court. His queen, Cersei Lannister, fed her ambitions while her family coiled around the crown like a golden viper. In the north, House Stark held on to honor. Ned Stark answered his old friend's call to serve as Hand of the King, but he didn't know the capital was a place where honor gets you killed. Far across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen grew in exile, a lost princess waiting to reclaim the throne stolen from her family by fire and blood. And beyond the wall, something ancient was stirring once more. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the wind had changed. Episode 3, Rise and Fall of Kings. In the early years of Conquest, dragons ruled the skies, and the Targaryens ruled the realm. Their power was absolute, drawn not only from fire, but fear, alliances, and ruthless control. But Westeros was never meant to kneel forever. In the north, the Starks clung to ancient ways. In the west, the Lannisters flaunted gold. In the east, the Velaryons ruled the seas. They all lived like kings in their own right, even as they bowed to the Iron Throne. Over time, cracks formed. Some whispered rebellion, others sharp. Episode 4, Under the Shadow of the Iron Throne. Everyone watched the Iron Throne, but few saw the poison beneath it. Robert Baratheon's reign crumbled under its own weight. Whispers turned to plots, old wounds reopened. Cersei Lannister's hunger for power deepened. And Ned Stark? He was a good man in the wrong place. The court was no longer a council. It was a battlefield of shadows. Every whisper could be a blade, every nod a trap. But while kings played their games in the south, something colder and far older stirred in the north. Westeros wasn't just fighting for power anymore. It was about to fight for survival. Episode 5, The War of Five Kings. Robert was dead, but instead of one heir, 5 kings rose. Joffrey Baratheon claimed the throne through lies. Robb Stark was crowned in the north seeking justice. Stannis and Renly Baratheon both staked their blood-born claims, and Balon Greyjoy declared independence from his lonely eyes. The realm shattered, castles burned, armies clashed, innocents bled. Each king fought for glory, but none found peace. Loyalties shifted, great houses fell, kings died, and Westeros would never be the same again. Episode 6: Thrones and Betrayals. The War of Five Kings dragged on. Robb Stark, the young wolf, fought with honor and fire. But love led him to a wedding soaked in blood, the Red Wedding. In King's Landing, Cersei played the long game. Her son Joffrey ruled with cruelty, but the true power lived in gold and in whispers. Across the sea, Daenerys was rising, no longer a scared girl with dragon wings. Her dragons now breathed fire. She built an army, not out of fear, but out of hope. In the north, Jon Snow stood guard at the wall, but beyond it, the true enemy stirred. The Game of Thrones had never been deadlier. Every choice had a cost, every betrayal a scar. Episode 7: The Prophecy of Ice and Fire. The Targaryens ruled not just with dragons, but with a secret. The conquest of Aegon the Conqueror wasn't just about power. He had a vision, not of thrones, but of a great darkness rising from the north. A prophecy. A coming long night. A time when all living would face death itself. To survive, the realm had to be united. That was Aegon's true reason. He forged
Episode 8: The Fall of Westeros. The Iron Throne still stood, but Westeros had already fallen. The wall was breached, the dead marched. Jon Snow was no longer a bastard. He was the heir to fire and ice. Daenerys arrived, not as a liberator, but as a conqueror shaped by pain. And pain makes dragons burn cities. King's Landing fell under fire and fury. The bells rang, but mercy never came. In the end, Jon made the hardest choice. He killed the woman he loved to save a realm that no longer believed in saviors. The Iron Throne was melted, like the illusion of power it had always been. Arya sailed west. Sansa ruled the north. Bran ruled what remained. But the real lesson? Kings rise, queens fall, dragons die, walls crumble. But people repeat their mistakes. The story of Westeros didn't end. It only changed its shape. The dragons flew, the kings fell, and history was written in fire and shadow. Honor, betrayal, love and loss, each etched into the stones of Westeros. But is this truly the end, or just the beginning of a new legend? Final question. Tell us, what was the greatest failure of Westeros? A queen's madness, a man's honor, or the silence of the people?